Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, continuing our focus on the budget today. Babajide Ogunsanwo joins us next. He's a data and information analyst. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, yes, indeed, we know a lot of focus, even the National Assembly themselves have said, look, this budget, as it is, not passable. They've looked at it. In fact, today we understand more pardons have been discovered, and it looks as if, will it ever end, all these pardons? But you've also seen some of the figures allocated to certain items in the budget. What's your impression?
It's interesting, but let's look at the budget from what's from the word on the street, what people are really worried about, the budget of the exchange rate, which is still pegged at 197 naira to $1. We need to look at where we're coming from. In August 27, 1985, when the president stepped aside, the exchange rate then was 89 kobo to $1. So we clearly understand why the president is hesitant to a naira, 89 kobo to $1. So it was with 89 kobo in 1985, you will get $1. So we clearly understand why the president is hesitant.
Oh, the current president. Okay, I thought it's a former president.
Now, in 1999, the exchange rate was 94 naira to $1. In 2007, when President Obasanjo handed over to President Yar'Adua, it had moved from 94 naira to 127 naira. And in 2011, when President Jonathan came in, it had moved from 127 naira to 154 naira. Right now, it is 197 naira. Chamberlain, Sulai, Mark, you don't have to be a soothsayer looking at all these trends to know where the naira is heading. So clearly, the budget of today, looking at the exchange rates, clearly is unrealistic. A lot of people are surprised about the pardon. It's been given all sorts of titles about why have the executives gotten the budget wrong. But if we had carefully studied the communication of the president, you won't be really too surprised. So you look at his Twitter handle and you look at the narrative of all its contents. And you break it down along three subjects that the president really has emphasized on: corruption, insecurity, and what we're facing right now, the budgets. And among all the content of his tweets, you will find corruption 42 times. You will find insecurity 8 times. And you find budgets only once. So clearly you can see what the president is comfortable with. He's comfortable about corruption.
For political people?
No, for everybody. It's comfortable about insecurity.
About fighting corruption.
Well, it's comfortable about fighting corruption. He's tweeted about it a lot.
Yeah,
but regarding the budget, you only find one mention of the word budget.
Sorry.
So it really doesn't come as a surprise that we're in this fiasco at the moment. We look at within the presidential budget, there's for refreshments and meals for the presidency, 114.9 million naira. That's an equivalent of 315,000 naira for the president per day.
You know, if you say he mentioned budget once, does that suggest that there isn't that interest in fighting corruption that has to do with the budget?
More than that, it clearly lets you know his thoughts. You look at corruption and he's always going on about corruption 42 times. So you clearly see he understands corruption and he wants to fight it. You look at insecurity 8 times. You understand where his thoughts are. And you look at budgets, only one mention. And then we also find ourselves in this. So it clearly doesn't come as too much of a surprise. What comes as a surprise is a budget of approximately 315,000 naira per day for the president. In simple terms, that will feed 800 malnourished children every day. And the only justification for a 315,000 naira feeding budget per day is only if the president is eating the most expensive chicken in the world, the Ayam Semani. It's what they call the Lamborghini of poultry. It's a $2,500 chicken. So unless someone from the presidency is coming out to say this is the justification. So we need the justification. Rather than we just criticize it, we need to understand why the presidency has a budget of 114.9 million naira.
Now, with all of this analysis, I asked Ibikwe if he's done a budget before, he's prepared a budget before. And from his statement, when he said it took him 2 weeks to go through the budget, it would mean that what he had before him was the budget as presented, maybe online, and even as presented to the National Assembly. It doesn't look as if he also had discussions or conversation with people at the budget office. Doesn't it worry you that in all of this, coming from the National Assembly, coming from people and journalists like Nicholas Ibikwe and yourself, the office, the budget office, hasn't said anything in terms of explaining in details what these are? Perhaps we just might not get the full gist of what this is about.
Yes, well, it's shocking that the budget office hasn't come out with its own narrative and explanation. You look at the budget and you also find out that you don't have sufficient footnotes that go with each line item to explain the thinking and the assumptions of each of the line items. But you clearly can see, especially if you break down the budget on a daily basis. Some weeks ago, we had, first of all, come out to look at it, and we had seen that the budget, in strict terms, is petty cash. And then you find out that this is the moment where our prioritization of the budget has to be most accurate. You have the United Kingdom, whose budget for primary school children is 243 billion naira. And our budget for the Nigerian army is only 139 billion. The budget of the United Kingdom for the entire educational sector, this is inclusive of secondary school, all institutions, is 24 trillion naira. So the budget, their budget for education is bigger than the budget of the entire country. That's Nigeria. So we have a problem. And because we don't have sufficient cash at the moment, it is dangerous that we are misallocating resources.
How do you mean?
A 6 trillion naira budget isn't sufficient for 181 million Nigerians. So if we are going to have to live with a 6 trillion naira budget, it is essential that it goes into the right places.
You know, can we really then say that, of a truth, this budget is actually a 6 trillion naira budget? Because if they take away all this padding, are we still going to have 6 trillion naira budget?
Well, clearly, even the revenue the government has projected it will earn is just about 3.8 trillion naira. The difference will be made from a lot of borrowings, domestic and foreign. But they're just, what you'll expect is the budget addressing issues regarding unemployment. So Nigerians want to understand, how will this 6 trillion naira create more jobs? The president had promised 3 million jobs. In the last 4 quarters, we've only achieved 1.5 million jobs. So the president needs to double his pace. This budget hasn't clearly created or narrated a plan that would move us away from our current rate of 1.5 million jobs within a year to 3 million jobs. We have a lot of young Nigerians like us out there that want to understand how this budget impacts them. They want to understand how they will survive with this budget.
Clearly, I think the budget office should be speaking, because looking at the defense, now we're getting to see live on television how some of the key ministries and even parastatals have gone to defend the budget. We've seen the police, we've seen the customs, the EFCC, we've seen the power works and housing, and everyone, they've been there to talk. And if this is the same vibe we're getting, it then looks like the budget office should speak to us more. Perhaps after this, the budget office should be next to explain some of these things. Do you think, for instance, what we saw live concerning the Ministry of Health, where the minister alluded to the fact that it doesn't look like that's the same budget for his ministry. How does it happen? How did that happen? It then means that something untoward had happened to some of these presentations, isn't it?
No, clearly, the Ministry of Health budget, the proposed Ministry of Health budget in 2015, 257 billion naira. Same figure for 2016. Same figure, 257 billion in the 2015 and 2016 budget. You are talking about the EFCC. The State Medical Center at the presidency for medical equipment has a budget of 3.2 billion naira. That is more than the capital budget of the EFCC. That's just the state medical equipment. So you see a lot of mismatch that till now hasn't been explained. And we mustn't pass box here. We mustn't. This budget has been done by the executive to be scrutinized by the legislative. And the leader of the executive is the president. So clearly, we need more explanation, not just from the president, but from the presidency, because this is their budget.